Good morning. This is Karl Dakin, and this is my successful funding show on LinkedIn live streaming. And today we're going to talk about the topic of artificial intelligence and the ability to use it as a tool in conducting the operations of a small business, and particularly with regard to raising funding. I have with me as my guest this morning Emiliano De Laurentiis, the CEO and founder of Knowledge Avatars, with whom I have worked for a number of years, trying to understand, appreciate, and implement different types of learning management systems, which has led to my other guest that's displayed here on the screen this morning. This is Cap. Cap is an artificial intelligence. He is an avatar format or presentation, and you can see Cap on my Dakin Capital website at www.dakincapital.com. And Cap has been a multi-year project to bring him to the point where he can provide answers to questions about raising funding. So we're going to work with Cap today to give you a little bit of idea of what CAP is all about, but also to kind of illustrate and demonstrate the difference between a avatar that's trained in artificial intelligence, between a chat bot and a lot of the other things out there that are based upon large language models, and try to clear the air a little bit about a lot of confusion and misperceptions about what is artificial intelligence, what are sentient beings, and when they're going to take over the planet, and reduce us to second class citizenship. So with that, Emiliano has been a guest before, but Emiliano, if you would introduce yourself and provide a little bit of background about your work over the decades and how it got you to today, where you're one of the bleeding edge performers in the area of artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Karl. It's a pleasure being on the show again. It's always a pleasure talking to you and to your audience. Um, Multi-decade is a good example. We started Knowledge Avatars 11 years ago, before OpenAI existed, and my journey in education and AI started actually 40 years ago when I published some educational software that had included some chatbot. And the chatbots in those days, this was before 1984, so it was before the Macintosh and the Macintosh user interface. So the user interfaces were very clunky at the time, and we had incorporated the we had incorporated the chatbot into our educational software, so you could ask the questions like, give me an example, test me on this, give me a definition of this concept, and teach me more about this concept. You go into more depth. So all of these capabilities were there in our 1981 software, and now we're kind of coming back full circle, because people are finding that point and click, the old and search engines are clunky. There's so much information that people have today, that AI is making it a lot easier to access that. But it's not just making it easier to access. There's also a matter of having a friendlier companion and assistant in your life. In fact, when I after I graduated at McGill in educational psychology, I ran a lab called the Computer-Based Instructional Research Lab. And one of our first research projects was to determine how people reacted to AI, and how people and what kind of information do they want from AI, and we discovered that, first of all, people did not like it if AI interrupted them. So they don't want people just for the AI just to interrupt them, like the old Microsoft AI that came out within the 90s, I suppose. Uh, so that was one thing, and the other thing was that people do react very positively to AI when it's there, when they need it, and if it has a friendly look, a friendly face, friendly voice. So these are the things that we have been focusing on, and that is why we have integrated images, characters, voices, all of this into our system.
So let's take the whole word of artificial intelligence and let's break it down. Maybe break it. I'm quite open to making sure that our audience understands what artificial intelligence is. And when we talk about artificial intelligence today, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion, and in particular, when we talk about large language models like OpenAI or Gemini or one of these other things, people keep attributing capabilities and outcomes to it that are incorrect. And I think it presents both. It's a great tool. We're going to talk about that in more detail. But at the moment, I want to dive into the misunderstanding that can put somebody in a little bit of a pickle if they don't understand the limits of what they're dealing with here. So, could you explain what is an artificial intelligence and why a large language model is not a sentient being like an alien from another planet uh, that is there?
Well, if you look at the news today, people are completely comparing OpenAI. I mean, actually, this morning, people are comparing OpenAI to the movie Her. And in fact, Steve Altman at OpenAI, they initially wanted to use Scarlett Johansson's voice in their demo of the latest version of ChatGPT, which is GPT 4.0, which, by the way, Knowledge Avatars has also incorporated into his system. So we now, as of yesterday, we now also use GPT 4.0 as part of our package. I can explain that a little bit more later. But her was an AI, artificially intelligent being that this dude in the movie falls in love with, and and the demo that OpenAI gave with the latest version of 4.0 was very impressive, very interactive, very quite good at responding to questions, but it doesn't know anything. It doesn't actually understand anything that you're saying. It is using a statistical model to put it all together, and it's like magic. It is absolutely amazing, but it does not know who you are, what you do, and what it is that what it is actually saying. If it's telling you, like if, for example, and we have on the screen here, uh, we asked Cap list subjects that you know about, and it said there are 6 subjects in this topic, Dakin capital services and so forth. It does not know these things. It is just responding to our requests, and I think that is. People are sometimes surprised by the statements. It is such a good simulation of a human interaction that people are fooled. Here's an
Well,
early example of this. Just one last point was which is a historical point. In 1964, Professor Weizenbaum, an educational psychologist, created a chatbot called Eliza. You may have heard of Eliza. It was very famous because it was probably the first chatbot ever. And at the time, it was just worked on a teleprompt, just text. And people were told that this was a psychologist working through typing. They were not told it was an AI. And but it was very simple. It really did not do much other than say, respond to people's keywords. So if you said something like, my mother was a pain this morning, it would ask, well, tell me more about your mother. Just a kind of standard things that a therapist might say. It would hum every so often, say, interesting. Tell me more about your family. Or tell me more about your work. So and Weizenbaum discovered that the people immediately attached themselves to this and really thought it was a real person, a real therapist on the other end. So it is very easy to be fooled to think that these are live sentient beings, but they're not. And I mean, today's models are much more complex and much more sophisticated, with trillions and trillions of pieces of information that that Weizenbaum's did not have. I wouldn't be surprised if Weizenbaum's system worked on 4K memory or something like that. But
So let's do a demonstration of that. You asked Cap a question earlier about investing before the election. The Cap avatar is sits on a learning management system which sits on top of OpenAI. So for our people who are trying to follow this conversation, up here, we have created a proprietary data set of information that we have trained or given to this learning management system so it can be more precise, more accurate about answering questions about raising funding by entrepreneurs and small businesses. Because if you ask the same question of OpenAI or Gemini or someone else, it's going to give you an answer that is more generic. It's like an averaging. So if we have 10 people who are 8 feet tall and who are 3 feet tall, it's going to give us the average between those two sets that isn't necessarily an accurate depiction of what's going on, but it's what the answer is going to be. So go ahead and ask it the question about the election.
Okay. What did we ask? Should you start a business? I think it was should you start a business?
So we'd raise money before the upcoming political election. So CAP has the ability to take both voice instructions as well as keyed in typed instructions. But for purposes of our show this morning, we're going to type everything so it doesn't get too confused by everything I'm saying over the top of what Emiliano was typing in.
I'm trying to turn off the voice. Oops. Well, it would have spoken, and I had the voice off. And so the decision to raise capital. I'll try it again. I'll just have to repeat because I think people would like to hear it. I'll just copy this. Let's see if it says gives us the same answer. Maybe not.
Or maybe not.
Raising money before an election can be strategic due to increased market activity and investor interest. However, it also comes with risks such as market volatility. It's crucial to assess your organization's current needs, investor sentiment, and potential regulatory changes before making a decision. Consulting with a financial advisor could provide more tailored insights.
Yeah, so this, when you hear this, it comes across as though you're talking to an advisor, to a knowledgeable person, to someone who's actually responding to your question about you, for you, and it could sound like exactly the kind of same answer you would get if you were talking with a licensed financial advisor or wealth advisor or something like that. But the problem is that this information is an average of all the information that could be found out there on the internet, and then it's grouped because in this fashion, in this sequence, which makes it appear like it is responding to your question when all it's doing is trying to give you an average between all these different answers that it might have seen somebody else write somewhere else. So even though it appears to be advice, it's not for you. It's not specific to you. It's just an average of what maybe tens of thousands of people have published in tens of thousands of blogs across time in multiple different locations, which means that at this point, if you rely upon this as you would upon getting information from an advisor, it may not be the right thing for you to do.
Right.
It sounds right, looks right.
Yeah. So just to clarify for the audience, the CAP was trained with your knowledge, with your Karl Dakin's knowledge. So if we ask it a question that is something that we have trained it with, it will answer with Karl Dakin's knowledge, and that is the important distinction between what we are doing and what other people are doing. It falls back on OpenAI if the answer is not there. But if the answer is within the scope of something that Karl Dakin trained it with, then it will answer with that. It gives priority to Karl Dakin's knowledge, and it will also present images or videos based on Karl. If Karl had uploaded that into the database, into knowledge avatars.
So let's take a brief time out here. We're going to break this apart even more. If we get through this whole hour and we only have like 2 or 3 things that we get clarified today, I'm going to declare this a victory, because I'm fighting with all kinds of people who are both trying to sell me more tools, all good for them. But we're seeing comments in all kinds of places, and observations and fear, and government stepping in saying they're going to regulate this, and they have apparently no true comprehension of what they're talking about, which means it's very, very dangerous in terms of people relying upon what they think they're getting as advice, and what they think they're regulating, and what their fears are. So before we go there, I'm going to say hello to our audience this morning. Harvey Tuck is with us. Harvey is has his own show called The Franchise Show. He's out of the UK, so we're now international for sure at this moment. And he works in helping share the idea of running a business in the format of a franchisor and a franchisee, and the pros and cons of going down that path. He puts on his show later this morning. It'll be on in a couple of hours. And I would invite anybody who has any interest in franchising to listen to Harvey's show, because he brings on the best and the brightest of everybody who's been there, done it in the franchising industry. And this is one of the advantages of this format, is we can bring on people. I've got Emiliano on here who's been working with AI for 40 years, and not somebody who picked it up last week and suddenly just thinks they know everything about artificial intelligence. So Harvey, thanks for listening this morning. Welcome to our audience. LinkedIn Live presents the opportunity for people to put comments and questions and feedback in the chat. So welcome everybody who's listening today to do that. And this show, after it is done, is recorded and posted on LinkedIn under my profile. So you can go back if we use 20 or 30 strange and exotic terms this morning, you can go back and try to pick those apart and see where we go to. With that, you're quite welcome, Harvey. I appreciate your listening, and thanks to everybody who's listening in this morning. And if you do have a question, feel free to post it in chat. We'll try to deal with it.
Harvey or somebody else may have a question for Cap.
Yes, yeah, Harvey, if you want to ask Cap a quick question about franchising, or whether he's heard of your franchise show, we're open to giving it a test run here and see what we can do with that. Emiliano was making a point, and this is one of the things we've been struggling with, is there are chatbots. Chatbot is something that may answer a question audibly. You might have an avatar associated with it, and they're becoming ubiquitous, meaning they're everywhere, they're pervasive. And these, I will call it working items, will answer questions for you just like Cap did. Okay, but when they answer a question, as a rule, they're using this generic information, which means that it looks like, sounds like, smells like it should be advice, and like they're responding directly to you, about you, to your question. But the fact of the matter is, if they're going to any kind of large language model, it's meaning it's unmodified, unbiased information that it's getting from that source, then it's generic. And it may be correct in some situations, it may be false in other situations. There could be any kind of natural, ordinary bias that creeps into a conversation interaction with a chatbot. And people have to be careful that if they don't know the true answer and they get some kind of response, then they may be at risk if they rely upon or use whatever response they get from a large language model type of a chatbot. And what we did with CAP and with Knowledge Avatars, Knowledge Avatars is Emiliano's company that has been working in this area for so long. But we realized a few years ago, even in the earliest days of what was going on with avatars, that too often you could ask it a question that was correct some of the time, but incorrect some of the time. And particularly, we found this with questions that were asked about entrepreneurship, because running a large business like an IBM or Apple is different than a startup mom and pop type of coffee shop. And if you ask in chatbot, what should I do now? And you get an answer that looks like it's advice to you, but it's actually correct for Apple, but wrong for the mom and pop coffee shop, then you could get in trouble. So we started building our own proprietary set of information based upon my work with hundreds of entrepreneurs and working with all kinds of funding programs and campaigns and so forth. And we started training it up. And this is CAP. CAP now represents the best and brightest of the work that Emiliano and I have done together to put proprietary, unique, and correct information. If you ask it a question that falls in this square, you're going to get an answer the same as if I gave it to you while talking with you. If you ask it a question that's outside of my scope, like how does quantum physics work, it will also answer that question because I don't know anything really about quantum mechanics. It's going to give you the large language model type of answer, which may be correct, may be wrong, may have been made up. So the problem that we experienced a lot when Chat 3.5 4.0 came out from OpenAI was that when you asked a question, it had to give you an answer, even if the answer had to be made up. And then we called this hallucination. It's not as bad today as it was, but you still will get answers that are incorrect to the point that if you relied upon this information, it would be something there. So Harvey's got a question for us to ask Cap. And just to give you some background, Emiliano, because I've listened to Harvey's show, and in the United States, we regulate franchising. It's considered a new business adventure. States and the Fed regulate how and why you go about becoming a franchisor and how you promote this to become a franchisee. But in the UK, they are unregulated at the moment. And so let's ask Cap, should franchising be regulated, and see what kind of response we get.
Should franchises be regulated? Okay. Oh, well, sorry about that. We'll choose.
Hello. Regulating franchises can provide a more standardized and fair business environment. Regulations can protect franchisees from potential exploitation and ensure that they receive adequate support and training. However, overregulation could stifle innovation and growth. Finding a balanced approach is essential. Best, Cap.
He signed it too.
Good for Cap.
So one thing, this just brings up a kind of a sidebar here. You can give knowledge avatars a personality. So when you create your knowledge avatar, you can also edit it. You can give it different personalities, make them funny, sarcastic, coquettish, whatever you want. They can look different they can also act different. So we're getting their personalities. So I can't remember what we chose for Cap, but it was funny that he signed it.
So yeah, we'll come back around to that because as you can see clearly, Cap drew their image from somebody that you may recognize, and if you were wanting to make it unique to yourself, you have the capability of doing that. We currently have it speaking dominantly in the English language, but you have many languages and dialects you can use.
Yeah, we have about 20 different English accents and about 20 different character faces, but those can also be customized, and the voice can also be customized, by the way.
Right. So this is where it's trending to the point where you may decide you want an executive assistant of your own version of a virtual assistant who can answer your phone or help you do exchange of communications or even help you in your office filling out one of the many positions in a small business. And with the amount of money using all the various tools, you can customize this to help you do things. And these things tend to be what we've seen in saving time, meaning that if you answer the same question every time somebody calls you and says, what does it mean to do crowdfunding? I can now have Cap answer that question. What does it mean to do crowdfunding? Instead of me having to take the time to say the same answer that I would have given to anyone, no matter who it was.
Yeah.
When you get more specific, where we're now distinguishing between an open a chat bot and personal advice, at some point, Cap can only be trained so far, and it becomes necessary for you to go one-on-one with an expert or a consultant. Then you need to have that kind of a conversation or communication. But Cap is way beyond what you would ordinarily see in a chatbot because of all the training, all the information that's been uploaded and trained into Cap. And so it makes it very different. So to Harvey's question, the answer is pretty much what I expected, is that there are advantages to regulation of franchising, but it can go too far. And the UK is currently discussing whether or not there would be, the question is a few bad apples going to dictate that they adopt regulations which would mandate that everyone involved in franchising now has to bear the burden of compliance, conformance, and reporting and everything else that goes along with that, because that cost to the small business, both the franchisee and the franchisor, always is added to the cost of the products or services, which means the consumer will ultimately pay for a higher degree of regulation. So too much regulation can make it too expensive. It can keep businesses from entering the market. We could go off on this whole topic, but this was a question asked of Cap, and Cap provided an answer which looks like he's responding to Emiliano and myself. But what he's done is he's going out, looked at all the information in the world that OpenAI has access to, brought it together, and said, this is an average of all the answers that you might have seen posted somewhere else. Now, is it correct? Maybe. Is it incorrect? Maybe that also. So what we have found is whenever you're using an AI as a tool, you always have to be in a position to either yourself or have an expert verify and validate that the information you received is correct. And so there are more tools being developed to help that, where you see AIs checking AIs to see if they can come to an agreement. It's almost like a panel of judges. Do we have unanimous agreement on this answer? If so, then it turns into something else. So the point that we wanted to make today, the primary issue is that when you're working with a chat bot, when you're working with any type of AI and you're asking questions, keep in mind that it's not answering your question. It's giving you an answer that looks like a lot of other answers, which may or may not fit your question precisely. And therefore, the answer may be the same as you would have received if you were talking to an expert. It also could be completely wrong.
Yeah,
And
it's like using
therein, yeah, yeah,
it's like using Wikipedia. You always want to verify your sources and double check.
right. Wikipedia had a lot of problems initially when they came out of the gate because they use an open source approach where they invite everybody to come in as an expert and supply information on any particular question. And some people would come in and state information as though it were fact, when in fact it was false, either because the person themselves was inaccurate or because they had an agenda and they
Some
intentionally
bias.
wanted,
Yeah.
to put false information out there. And so it got a bad rub. I still like Wikipedia. I still contribute money to Wikipedia because it is one of the biggest, bestest sources of information out there on a
So
lot of
do I.
topics. But AI is going to give it a run for the money. At some point, AI kind of has access to everything Wikipedia does, plus more. And so you may find that asking a question of a chatbot may give you exactly the same or better information than you may get from Wikipedia. And so in some ways, Wikipedia is like if you want to call it, a hardwired type of AI. It just kind of kludgy compared to what AI is today, but it's out there. So this is what we're working towards. Is we believe that um, chat general chat bots out there can do a lot of good, can help out with, I'll call it, more ordinary, common, average type of situations. Where if you say, hey, I'd like to listen to music that was created in the 1970s by a British group, it's going to pull from that group, and you may find a list of things. But if I start asking it a question like, should I, I'm 70 years old and I want to retire this year. Should I, cash out my 401k or do something like that? Do not, do not ask. You can ask a chatbot what it would give you, and you're going to get a generic set of information. It's not truly an answer to your question. It's just a grouping of generic information that may or may not match up with your question precisely, and it may be inaccurate. And you need to go beyond that to an expert. And so what we've been doing with it, I've been working with Emiliano and Knowledge Avatars, is we're trying to figure out how we can move a chat bot to as close of an expert as we can by tailoring, training it to have information that would come from an expert. So right now, CAP has every single one of my instant funding newsletters going back to December 1st. So it has over 175 issues or editions of my newsletter. It has about 100 plus articles that I've posted on LinkedIn over the last 5 years. And we're starting to put in workbook materials from my training sessions. And then we're going to take all the transcripts from all of my successful funding shows and keep adding this in. And what that means is that it now has information that's not generally available to the public, and it's going to look and give you a different response to your question, which will look like advice. But again, at the same time, it's not truly advice. It's just more precise generalization of information that may look like an answer. And at some point, you still need to go to a person and ask them, what they would tell you. But anyway, with
So,
that,
so, so what? So,
yeah,
one thing I want to say, a lot of what people are using. I've been doing some research to see how people are using ChatGPT, And a lot of people are basically using it for their own purposes, to help them write an article, to help them to do some research, to come up with ideas. Even, give me give me a great a slogan for my company, stuff like that. Which CAP can do, by the way, because we're using that same technology. But knowledge avatars is was designed from day one to be an avatar of your knowledge. So everybody can have their own knowledge avatar that publishes that knowledge out there. So you can place the knowledge avatar, access them via a link, via your phone. It could be a QR code. It could be embedded in a website. So the whole idea behind knowledge avatars is not just that you will use it for yourself, but rather that your knowledge is now being used and as an assistant to you to help relieve your time, so that you have more time for some of the more creative and some more difficult tasks, while one of the things that you're already an expert at, such as answering questions like, what's a business plan, or things that are more perhaps more mundane for somebody of your caliber, but nevertheless very important for somebody who, in this case, Cap is an expert on raising capital. So a lot of people will have, before they can get to the level where you have to intervene and get into the weeds and most difficult question, answer the most difficult questions, and try to help people with the more precise information. How do I raise capital in a capital campaign? How do I write a capital campaign? Things of that sort. So before you get to that point, CAP can answer a lot of people's questions and get them to up onboard them and get them ready to talk to you directly. And that is very
Yeah.
powerful, because any teacher can have their own knowledge avatar. Any educator can have their own knowledge avatar. Any expert can have their own knowledge avatar to relieve them. In fact, I just wrote an article, the symbiosis between an expert and knowledge avatars, and together with this article, we're running a special right now. As you can see it on LinkedIn, people can access knowledge avatars for just $5 a month instead of the regular price. So that will be so we want people to try it out and start using knowledge avatars as a companion that was meant to be, not just for their own purposes to write a better article, for example. Which, of course, they can, like I said, they can use it for that too. But it's really about publishing their knowledge and their ideas for the world to see.
Yeah, so the knowledge avatars, people can now get a subscription from knowledge avatars to create their own
Just go to
avatar, like I've created
knowledgeavatars.ai.
Yeah, and through that, as Emilio is describing, you've got you can do it as a personal aide or assistant, where you can keep your information that will help you do what you do on a daily basis, whether it's a reminder list or you're grocery shopping or water the yard, or you started building a library of all the news articles you saw on a particular topic of interest. And then as you add this information in, it's so simple. This sounds like a Peel Pocket Fisherman had, but it is so simple to train up your avatar, because you can cut and paste the information into it. And at that point, it's just as though you did an imprint on their brain. And again, I'm using imagery that's incorrect, but nonetheless, it's to tell the story. One of the things Emiliano and I are working on now, which I find even more interesting, is moving beyond the use of these trained expert avatars from an individual level to an organizational level. And meaning that once you have a group or a team of people that are working with each other, they each can benefit, each person can have their own avatar. That's great. And they get all the benefit of that. But then we get a greater benefit when we start talking about creating an avatar that is for the organization, that represents the organization. And this can be a combination or compilation of all the individuals that are working there, but it can include information that you want to show to the public that anyone can ask it a question. Like you can go to my website and ask Cap any of the questions you want to ask right now, but we can create a second avatar that's an internal operating like the COO, and only people who have access to that avatar can gain that information. So you could put in like your particular human resources rules or how you handle confidential information, anything that's unique to your organization can be available to anyone within your organization in a collection of avatars that are performing different tasks. And then you can set one up for every member on your staff. So if you want to do a write-up on their performance, the COO may have access to that report and the individual does, but no one else in the company on the staff or team has that. And then you can do it with each of your customers. So if you just sold them something, you may say, well, we want to track your acquisition of this piece of equipment, the warranty work, any claims you have, any feedback, suggestions, questions you may have. And this whole body of information that's unique, not available to the public, and it's limited to the relationship between your organization and that customer, that can have its own avatar for that customer. So we're defining different, I will say, settings or groupings of information and knowledge that is not generic, it's not public, it's not something you're going to find in a chatbot because it doesn't exist anywhere except where you have put it. But having it in an AI format is so much better than having a database where you have to have a specific query with a response, like you do a keyword search. You go, if keyworded all day long, I can't find an article I'm looking for. But an AI-enabled large language model system has a better understanding of finding that. So it's a better search engine tool, as you've seen now with Google just added it to their search engine. So you have a better search capability. And I'm using a variety of other tools that appear to be a little bit further down the path, but it's going to be a fun foot race to see what comes out of it.
So going beyond chat, when people think of chat, they're thinking of question and answer, right? But knowledge avatars also has a pedagogy of the ability to teach in its DNA. So for example, you can specify what are prerequisites for you to understand a particular concept. So that is very powerful because now you can ask Cap, or you can ask a knowledge avatar, what do I need to know to understand this? And that is very powerful because how many times have you're reading something and you read the paragraph and you have no idea where to go. I still don't understand this formula. I still don't understand what they meant. I still don't understand the relationship, the historical relationship here. I still don't understand A, B, and C. So that is what the whole goal of knowledge avatars is to make learning easier, make learning faster, make learning less onerous for people. So you can go in as a creator, you can go in and specify those prerequisites. You can also specify learning paths. So for example, even here with Cap, I can say list subjects. I can ask it to list subjects that it knows, and it will give me a list of
There are 6 subjects in this topic. Dakin capital. Services. Dakin capital fees. Raising capital. The motivated money method.
Okay, so I can ask it.
Do you want me to continue?
No. So I can ask it to tell me about the motivated money method, for example, and then
Understood.
Okay.
If you have any specific questions or need assistance later, feel free to let me know.
Yeah. So I can follow a path, the motivated money method, for example. I can ask it, so I can say, tell me about the motivated money method. Okay.
The motivated money method is an approach to raising funding that focuses on the identification of investor candidates who are most likely to invest. The motivated money method was created by Karl Dakin.
And I can just say, just go next to the next point that you want to make about this.
The learning path is empty in this concept.
Okay, we don't have any more points to make about this. But if we would have had the path, it would have gone on and taught us more. So we have this capability to teach and to go into more depth. And we use a pedagogical model called FEED. FEED stands for feedback, experiences, examples, and definitions. So a definition is like a generalization. That's the ultimate. That's what you want to have, a generalization of a concept. So that if you see the color red, you will recognize it no matter what, how bright that is or how dark it is. If you look at a cup, you will recognize cups no matter what their shape. So that's a generalization, right? And examples are very specific instances of each of those concepts. So you want to have, that's how people learn. They learn with a lot of examples, and that helps inform a generalization. And that, by the way, is also, that's a psychological reality of how people learn, but that's also how we train AI. We give them a lot of examples, and then they form those generalizations from those examples to come up with a definition, or what is also referred to as a generalization. And
Right. So if you think of working with chatbots and then with knowledge avatars and then experts, think of them as three tiers of expertise, where a chatbot is going to give you an amalgamation, a averaging of answers from all kinds of people, which on a very average day for an average person could be exactly the same thing you would get from any other source. Then by using knowledge avatars and having these concepts and this pedagogy of concepts that you've put in there, you are now moving away from average to something that is different and hopefully more precise, more accurate to what you want to talk about. And you're moving away from information that may be available to anyone to information that be completely private and proprietary and not available through a chatbot. And then at the top of this pyramid or the top of the stack, presumably you're talking to an expert who has the ability to answer your question. And like any question that you may ask, even the expert may not have an answer. There may not be an answer to your question. This to achieve an answer may require exploration or discovery or some engagement in an activity in order to kind of get to a point. And as an example, people come to me and they say, can I be successful in raising money? And sometimes I have to answer, I don't know.
Right.
I don't have an answer to that question because I don't have enough information myself to frame an answer. But I'm trying to give an answer that's one-to-one with the person asking the question. I'm not making a general assumption that because you're a small business that you can raise funding, because that's true some of the time, and it's also false some of the time.
One of the aspects of GPT-4 or GPT in general, is that it has a very good. People don't really talk about this that much, but there are two aspects of it. One is the knowledge itself, that it scraped from the internet, right, or from other sources. In fact, this morning another news item was that OpenAI is making a deal with Reddit, so that it will be scraping all the interactions on Reddit to train the bot with. But it also has this other aspect, which is how it analyzes content and tries to make sense of it so that it can answer the questions appropriately. So we're using that engine very diligently so that when you're training your knowledge avatar with your knowledge, we're using a very sophisticated GPT engine to read that content that you've trained your bot with, and to make sense of it. So you may have, for example, one piece of information that is your bio. You have another piece of information that is your fees, and then another piece of information that is the hours that you operate. And somebody may ask the bot a question such as, when can I make an appointment, and how much is it going to cost? And it will grab information that from different elements and bring it all together to answer that question. Now, and one use case for what we're doing, for example, is to answer patients' questions in the waiting room. There are some people looking into that right now. Another use case is for Knowledge Avatar is product manuals. Instead of having product manuals, which don't really give people clear answers, you can have a QR code on the machine, and people can just point their phone to it. It opens up the knowledge expert on that particular machine, and people can say, well, so my paper is jammed. What do I do about it? And it can take them through the process of solving that problem. So we should be seeing a lot of efficiencies and speed and accuracy with this. And of course, it's updatable all over in the internet. So we have companies right now with over 500 products who are looking into using knowledge avatars for product manuals. And it's a simple use. It's not as complicated as teaching rocket science, but we could teach rocket science with knowledge avatars, but we could also do product manuals.
Right. I remember an advertisement on TV where somebody walked in a beat up old bar and said, I'd like to hear the music like a record player, but they picked a particular song from a particular era, a particular genre, and they just assumed that this bar would be able to have this type of information available. Which at the time we used to laugh about all the cop shows where they would put something in and pull up a profile on a criminal, like we would laugh and go, one is not capable, and two, if you could do it, it would take 2 weeks. And now we're getting to a point with the information that's out there where we can do that. I'm still struggling with the fact that with all the laws on raising money involving the sale of securities is so large, so voluminous, and it's not generally available through a chatbot. And I'm going to see what I can do to add that into my repertoire of things we're going to train into CAP, because we'd like to use this where if you go to a crowdfunding campaign and you open up the crowdfunding website, somebody wants to ask it a question about the offering, no problem. We can train all that in. But if it asks, well, what is Rule 144 on how long I can hold this equity ownership after I buy it, we're not at that point yet. And so this is the future that's coming at us in a hurry. And then Emiliano and I have talked about our vision of the next generation that goes beyond where we're at today, where you won't have a website anymore. That your avatar, when you ask it for information, because it's been trained on who you are, will jump to somebody else's avatar, and you'll do a link. You'll skip over the web page. You may even jump into a virtual world where now you're surrounded by somebody's virtual reality situation, which may look like a storefront, but you have 4 or 5 avatars that are waiting on you hand and foot, like you just checked into the best hotel in the world. So there's so many things coming where our ability to gain information correctly, timely, accurately is where we're headed. But for today, we're still kind of caught up in this transition as we're understanding new and better ways to get information. Part of today's program was kind of get everybody a heads up and say, be careful what you're getting, be careful to understand the type of information that you're getting, because without it being carefully vetted, you may find yourself in a situation where you're leaning on, relying upon something that looks like an answer to your question, and it's an average of other people's answers to other people's questions and may not match up with your question. So Don Cohen's with us this morning. I'm going to say shout out to Don. Don is my super mentor on everything LinkedIn, and particularly on LinkedIn Live. I've been tutored by Don now for several months to help me put on this program, and he, along with Harvey and Kelly Steinecke and Beverly Glazier, have been teaching me and other small businesses how to better share what I know doing programs like today. And it's part of the reason why I might actually look like I understand what I'm doing. But for all those out there today, this may be a first. I don't know. We'll have to go back and see if we can find any information on chatbots that says we have Cap as a trained expert AI avatar online with two individuals at the same time. And so this is a show with two guests, Emiliano and Cap. And we're going to see what we can do to have Cap as a regular guest on shows going forward.
Should I ask more
So
questions?
yeah, any question about funding, I'll be relatively interested to see if it's correct, and I can correct it immediately if it's not. But this is the goal, is to get to a point where we can have a digital assistant who could be kind of like a receptionist or a first level sales assistant who can provide information the same way I would, but information that's more accurate than what you're ever going to get from a chat bot, because we have given it access to information that's not available from other sources. And therefore, to the extent that we have trained it up, it's a head and shoulders, or maybe several feet or meters above a general chat bot. And that's important today as you go out and you're trying to differentiate yourself from everybody else in the world. You're trying to improve the operations of your organization. And it's trending in a way where it's very difficult to predict exactly where we're going to be, even a few months from now, let alone a year from now.
By the way, anybody can go to knowledgeavatars.ai, and without even having to register or log in, they can talk to some knowledge avatars. There's a link called Expo, where we have an expo of different knowledge avatars. Cap is there. We have others that are available. For example, Wine Guru. If you needed some advice on which wine to buy tonight for dinner, you can ask it how to pair that you want a wine that pairs with whatever, grilled salmon, for example. There's a restaurant guru that helps you build up a restaurant. That gives you advice on the business of restaurant ownership. There's a chess guru that helps you be a better chess player, and so on and so forth. So we have about half a dozen publicly available knowledge avatars there. And if you wanted to embed one or more on your website, then they just email us, and we can possibly make that happen. Some are available for embedding, some are not, but we can talk about that.
So this is one of the other things that you can have a chat bot where you can go and ask it, but with the knowledge avatars, you can embed it like a widget on most websites. Most websites allow you to bring in what it calls the third-party widget, where it's actually connecting with another server. We're going to get into a bunch of technical terms, but it means that it's accessible on your website to anyone who comes to your website. And if you've ever had a complaint that somebody went to your website and you've got 23 tabs out there that go down 4 layers with subpages and subpages because you have that much information, putting an avatar at the front end as your digital receptionist to say, what are you looking for? I can help you find it, and do it quicker, easier, faster. You're going to make it a smoother, more friendly interface than your average website. And this is just one of many things we can do. We're still learning. We're not even the tip of the iceberg yet on understanding all the things that we can get a true artificial intelligence to do, and understand where's the limitations at the same time, so that we don't get ourselves in trouble. So Emiliano, thank you for being a guest today. We're coming to the end of our 1 hour, but I think at least I feel comfortable that we've gotten some points across to our audience today that this is a great new tool. It's going to cause disruption in how you do everything you do and all the good and bad that occurs from that. But be careful when you're asking questions to determine, what is it giving you back? It looks like an answer, but it's really something else. And understanding that distinction may be critically important to your ability to use some of this stuff as you go forward. Last words, Emiliano, last thoughts you would like to share?
Yes, I'd like to invite everybody to go to knowledgeavatars.ai, try out one of the knowledge avatars, or register and create your own. There's a 30-day free trial, so you can cancel at any time. And the beauty of what we have put together, I think, is besides the fact that it teaches, is that it's completely turnkey. So you choose the image, you choose the personality, you choose the voice, and you're done in 10 minutes. You have a knowledge avatar ready to go. If you don't want to train it, that's fine. It just uses the knowledge from OpenAI. If you want to train it, that's even better. So I think it's a very easy turnkey solution that does not require additional costs on your part other than the monthly fee. So by all means, I hope to see many people sign up today.
Well, thank you, Emiliano, and there's your invite. You can test drive one of the different avatars that's on the Knowledge Avatars website. And if that gets you inspired enough to create your own avatar, it's not a long path or an expensive path to do so. And if you're at a larger organization who is fighting with getting all your information in the right place, available to everybody at the right time, give some consideration to how you might go about doing that with knowledge avatars. So that sounds enough like an advertisement. So I will call it a day here at this point. And thanks the audience for being here on my Successful Funding Show. And next week is up in the air because I'll be traveling next week. So I'll try to get something figured out and let everybody know when and how we'll have a show next week. So everyone
Any
take
final
care.
words? Any final words from Kat that we want?
Yeah. So, Cap, what do you recommend people do with artificial intelligence?
That's a good question. Let me correct the spelling here.
AI can revolutionize various aspects of business. For raising capital, leverage AI to analyze market trends, evaluate investment opportunities, and optimize fundraising strategies. Utilizing AI-driven tools can enhance decision-making and improve your pitch to potential investors.
All right. Well, good luck, everybody.
Hey, take care.
Thank you. Thank you.